The sky above New Madrid was dark, not just with clouds but with smoke and fire. The city had once been full of life, cars, music, laughter, lights. Now it was broken. Tall buildings stood like ghosts, missing walls and windows. Fires burned in the distance, and the sound of war filled the air. Captain Luke Harper moved through the ruins, his boots crunching on broken glass and twisted metal. He wore heavy armor that used to be green but was now blackened from ash and blood. Around him were soldiers, all tired, all scared, but still moving forward. They were fighting the Zalari Dominion, an alien race that came from far away. Their ships had come down like falling stars, glowing bright as they broke through Earth's sky. They brought weapons humans had never seen before, beams of light that cut through steel, bombs that made the ground shake for miles, and machines that flew without wings. Humanity tried to fight back. Missiles, tanks, planes, all useless. The Zalari tech was too good, their weapons too strong, but something strange was happening. No matter what the aliens threw at them, the humans would not die easily. Luke didn't know why. All he knew was that bullets hit him and did nothing. Explosions knocked him off his feet but left no burns. Plasma fire passed through his body like mist. He wasn't invincible. He felt pain, he bled, but somehow, he always got up again. He looked at his hands as he crouched behind a broken wall. Scars ran across his skin, old wounds that should have killed him. His heart beat fast, not just from fear but from confusion. "Harper," a voice called out. It was Private Megan Carter, one of the younger soldiers. She pointed toward the street ahead. "Movement!" Luke peeked over the rubble. Down the road, a Zalari scout drone hovered low, its blue light scanning the area. Its body was smooth, shaped like a disc, with sharp edges and no visible weapons. But looks were deceiving. That thing could kill a man with a single pulse. "Stay low," Luke whispered. "Don't move." The drone passed overhead, humming softly. It paused for a second, then kept going. When it was gone, everyone let out a breath they didn't know they were holding. "How did it miss us?" Megan asked. "I don't know," Luke said, "but we keep moving." They crawled through the wreckage, heading for the old train station, where intel said the last survivors were hiding. If they could reach them, maybe they could regroup, maybe even strike back. As they moved, Luke thought about the past few weeks. The invasion had started fast. Cities fell in days. Governments collapsed. People died by the millions. But some survived. Not just a few, too many. Soldiers who should have been dead walked away with only bruises. Civilians caught in blasts lived when they should have died. Scientists tried to understand it. Blood tests showed changes in human DNA, small but powerful. Something inside them was protecting them. But what? Luke didn't have time to think about it now. A loud crash echoed from the north. Then another. Then the sky lit up with red fire. "Artillery!" someone shouted. Luke grabbed Megan and pulled her behind cover. The first shell landed 2 blocks away, blowing apart a building in a cloud of dust and flame. The second struck closer. The third hit the street beside them. Luke felt the blast throw him backward. His ears rang. Smoke filled his lungs. His vision blurred. He expected pain, sharp, burning pain, but none came. He sat up slowly. Megan was coughing nearby. Her face was covered in soot, but she was alive. "Are you okay?" Luke asked. She nodded. "I think so." Around them, others stirred. Some groaned, some cried, but most stood up. None were seriously hurt. "That shouldn't be possible," Megan said, staring at the crater where the shell had landed. "No," Luke agreed. "It shouldn't." Back on Earth, far from the battlefields, Dr. Claire Norris sat in a lab filled with blinking screens and quiet hums of machines. She was in her 30s with short brown hair and tired eyes. She had not slept in days. On the screen in front of her was a strand of DNA, zoomed in until each tiny part was visible. This was a sample from a soldier who had survived a direct plasma beam to the chest. Claire compared it to a normal human genome. There were differences, small changes in the sequence like letters rearranged in a sentence. But those changes weren't random. They were patterns. Codes. What does it mean? Asked Jason Bell, her assistant. He was younger than her, maybe, 25, with glasses and a nervous energy. It means... Claire paused, trying to find the right words. It means our bodies are changing, not evolving slowly like normal. Fast. Almost like they're reacting to the attacks. Jason frowned. Reacting? Like defending themselves? Yes, she said. But not just defense. Rewriting. Repairing. It's like the damage triggers something inside the cells. They fix themselves and more. So you're saying humans are becoming immune to alien weapons? I'm saying, Claire said carefully, that something is making us survive things we shouldn't. And I don't know how or why. Jason stared at the screen. That's impossible. Is it? Claire asked. Because, if it is, then explain why every test shows the same thing. Why people walk away from explosions, why bullets don't work anymore. Outside, the world was in chaos. Wars raged across continents. Refugees flooded into underground shelters. But in labs like this one, scientists were starting to ask new questions. What if the invasion wasn't the end? What if it was the beginning? In the air, the skies above Earth, the Zalari High Command watched the battles unfold from their massive ship. Their leader, Commander Vectal, stood at the front of the command deck, his tall, thin frame silhouetted against the red glow of the planet below. His voice was cold and deep. Report. One of his officers stepped forward. Casualty rates among enemy forces remain abnormally low. Our weapons show reduced effectiveness. We have confirmed multiple cases of survival after exposure to level 4 plasma discharge. Vectal turned sharply. Explain. We cannot, the officer admitted. Their biology resists our attacks. It is unnatural. Vectal's eyes narrowed. Unnatural? Or engineered? There was silence. If these beings are adapting to our weapons, he said, then they are dangerous. More dangerous than we believed. Another officer spoke. Shall we increase firepower? Deploy the virus? No. Vectal raised a clawed hand. Not yet. First, we must understand. Back in New Madrid, Luke led his squad through the remains of the train station. Inside, they found civilians. Hiding families, children, the elderly. They were scared, hungry, but alive. You're safe now, Luke told them. We'll get you out. A young girl approached him. She couldn't have been older than 10. Her face was smudged with dirt, but her eyes were clear. You're not afraid, she said. Luke smiled. Of course I am. But you don't act like it. That's my job, he said. To keep going, even when I'm scared. She reached out and touched his arm. You feel different. Luke blinked. What do you mean? I don't know, she said. Like you're not hurt like other people. He looked at his arm. There was a burn mark from earlier, but it was already fading. He hadn't noticed. Maybe, he said quietly. Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. A transport plane was coming to pick them up. Time to go, Luke said. Let's move. As the evac began, Megan walked beside him. You believe that kid? She asked. I don't know, Luke said, but I've been thinking the same thing. They looked at each other, both unsure of what was happening to them. All they knew was that the war was far from over, and something inside them was changing. Claire Norris sat at her desk, staring at the glowing screen in front of her. Lines of genetic code scrolled by like a river of secrets. She had spent days analyzing the samples, dozens of them now, from soldiers, civilians, even children who had survived attacks that should have killed them. The pattern was clear. Their DNA wasn't just changing slowly over time like normal evolution. It was reacting, adapting, rewriting itself in real time. She rubbed her eyes, exhausted but unable to stop. Jason Bell stood nearby, holding a cup of coffee he hadn't touched yet. So what does it mean? He asked again. Claire sighed. It means our bodies are fighting back. Not with white blood cells or antibodies, with something deeper, something built into us. Jason frowned. Built into us? Like, we were made this way? I don't know, she admitted, but I think someone or something left this in us a long time ago. Outside the lab window, the sky was dark. The city below was quiet but not peaceful. People were scared. The Zalari had attacked again, this time near the coast. Reports said thousands died, but also hundreds survived things they shouldn't have. One video showed a man walking out of a burning building after a plasma strike. His clothes were gone. His skin blackened, but he was standing, talking, alive. Another showed a woman hit directly by an alien grenade. She fell, screamed, then stood up minutes later like nothing happened. Claire had seen these videos. So had every scientist in the world, and no one could explain it. Luke Harper sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the floor. He was back, at base camp, miles away from New Madrid. The evac mission had been successful, but he didn't feel like celebrating. His body hurt. Not badly, but enough to remind him he wasn't some kind of robot. He had bruises, burns, cuts, but none of them stayed bad for long. The pain faded faster than it used to. Wounds closed quicker. Blood stopped flowing too soon. He looked at his hands again. Scars from old wounds were already fading. A burn mark from yesterday was gone. Megan Carter walked in, holding 2 trays of food. "You look like you just saw a ghost," she said. "I feel like I did," Luke replied. She handed him a tray and sat down beside him. "What's wrong?" He shook his head. "I don't know, it's just, every time I get hurt I expect to stay hurt, but I don't. I keep getting up." She nodded. "Me too." They ate in silence for a while. Then Megan said, "Do you think we're still human?" Luke looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she hesitated, "we're surviving things we shouldn't. Bullets, explosions, fire. We're healing too fast, maybe we're not the same anymore." Luke didn't answer right away. He thought about the girl in New Madrid, the one who had touched his arm and said he felt different. Maybe she was right. Back in the lab, Claire and Jason worked late into the night. They pulled up old files, records of strange myths and legends from all over Earth. One story caught Claire's eye, a tale from ancient Africa about star seeds. It spoke of humans being planted here by beings from the sky, given life and purpose. Another came from South America, a myth about gods who gave humans special power so they could survive when the stars turned red. At first, she dismissed them as stories, but then she found something else, a group of meteorites recovered from Antarctica. They had been studied years ago, labeled as space debris, but one had markings carved into its surface, symbols that matched the ones in the myths. Claire leaned closer to the screen. "Jason, look at this." He moved behind her. "What am I looking at?" "These symbols," she said. "They show up in myths across the world, in completely different cultures, separated by oceans and centuries. And now they're on a rock, from outer space." Jason stared at the screen. "You think someone left these here?" "I think," Claire said slowly, "someone might have put something inside us a very long time ago. And now, because of the war, it's waking up." On Mars, Luke's unit was deployed to defend the last human outpost. The Zalari had started attacking off-world colonies, trying to cut off Earth's supply lines. The outpost was small, built into the side of a cliff overlooking a dusty plain. It had limited defenses and only a few dozen soldiers. Luke stood watch as the sun rose over the horizon. Mars was always cold, but today it felt colder. He breathed into his gloves, watching the steam rise. Then the alarms blared. "Enemy contact!" someone shouted. Luke grabbed his rifle and ran toward the command post. Through the scope, he saw them. Zalari dropships descending from the sky, releasing sleek, insect-like drones onto the ground. The battle began quickly. Plasma fire lit up the dust-filled air. Explosions rocked the cliffs. Luke fired round after round, ducking behind cover whenever he could. Then it happened. A drone locked onto him. Its targeting light flashed red. Before he could move, it fired. A beam of blue energy struck him square in the chest. Luke flew backward, crashing into the wall behind him. Pain shot through his body like fire. His vision blurred. His breath caught. He thought he was dead, but he wasn't. Seconds passed. Then 10. Then 30. The pain faded. Luke opened his eyes. Smoke filled the air. Megan crouched beside him, shouting something he couldn't hear. He pushed himself up slowly. His armor was scorched. His shirt burned away. But his skin was unbroken. No hole, no burn, just a red mark. He looked at Megan. "I'm okay," he said. She stared at him. "No, you're not." Back on Earth, Claire and Jason met with military officials. The government wanted answers. They needed to understand what was happening before it got worse. In a large room filled with maps and screens, generals and scientists listened as Claire explained her findings. "We believe the immunity isn't natural," she said. "Something inside us is causing these changes. Our bodies aren't just healing, we're adapting, evolving in real time." One general asked, "Are you saying we're becoming something else?" "I'm saying," Claire replied, "we might have always been more than we thought." Jason added, "There's evidence that suggests this change was triggered by the Zalari weapons themselves. Their attacks may have activated something dormant in our DNA." Another general frowned. "So, you're telling me we owe our survival to the aliens who are trying to kill us?" "No," Claire said. "I'm saying someone, maybe not the Zalari, planted this in us a long time ago, and now because of the war it's waking up." Silence filled the room. Then the president's advisor spoke. "If this is true, what happens next?" Claire looked around the room. "That depends on what we choose to do with it." Later, that night Luke sat outside the Mars outpost staring at the stars. Megan joined him. "You ever wonder if we're still the same people?" she asked. Luke nodded. "Every day." She sat beside him. "Do you think we'll go back to normal someday?" "I don't know," he said. "Maybe there is no normal anymore." They watched the sky in silence. Above them, ships moved between planets. The war was far from over, but deep inside them something was changing, and they were starting to understand why. The signal came from deep under the ice on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. It was faint, buried beneath layers of frozen water, but it was there. A pulse, repeating every 73 seconds like a heartbeat. Claire Norris stared at the screen in her lab. The data had been coming in for days now, and each time she checked, it was the same. The pattern wasn't natural. "Jason," she called out, "come here." Jason Bell walked over, still holding a coffee he hadn't finished yet. He looked tired like everyone else these days. "What is it?" he asked. Claire pointed at the screen. "The signal. It's not just random noise. Look at the timing. It repeats too perfectly." Jason leaned in closer. "So you're saying someone, or something, is down there?" "I'm saying," Claire said slowly, "we might not be alone in our own history." She pulled up old files. Again, records of strange symbols found in meteorites, ancient myths about gods who came from the stars, and stories passed down through generations that no one ever took seriously. But now, those stories didn't seem so far-fetched. "There's more," Jason said. He tapped on another file. "Look at this. There were reports years ago of unusual readings from Europa. Some scientists thought it was geothermal activity, but others believed it could be artificial." Claire nodded. "We need to go down there." Back on Mars, Luke Harper stood with his squad near the edge of the outpost. The wind howled across the red dust, and the sky glowed orange in the distance. Megan Carter walked up beside him. "They're sending us somewhere new," she said. Luke turned to her. "Where?" "Europa," Megan replied. "Something's happening down there." Luke frowned. "What kind of something?" She shook her head. "I don't know, but I heard they're putting together a team. You're on it." Luke didn't say anything at first. He had survived more than he should have already. And now they were sending him into space? He looked at the horizon. The war wasn't over. The Zalari were still attacking Earth and its colonies. But if there was something down there, something that could explain what was happening to them, then maybe it was worth the risk. All right, he said. Let's go. 3 weeks later, the team landed on Europa. The surface was icy and cracked, covered in long lines like scars across the moon's skin. Their ship, a small exploration vessel, touched down gently near a known fissure where the signal was strongest. Inside the ship, the team prepared to step outside. Maria Delgado, the pilot, checked their suits. Make sure your seals are tight. If you tear a suit down here, you won't last 5 minutes. Danny Cho, the engineer, gave a thumbs up. Suit's good. Claire and Jason stepped forward next. They were joined by 2 soldiers, Private Nate Rivera and Corporal Tasha Moore. Stay close, Maria warned, and keep comms open. They stepped onto the icy ground. The air was thin, almost non-existent. The only sound was the soft hiss of their breathing inside their helmets. This place is dead, Tasha muttered. No, Claire said, looking around. It's quiet, not dead. They moved toward the fissure, following the signal's source. As they got closer, the ground became unstable. Cracks ran deep, some glowing with heat from below. Danny scanned the area with a handheld device. There's something down there. Big. They lowered themselves carefully into the crack using ropes and harnesses. The deeper they went, the warmer it got. Ice melted around them, dripping down the walls. Then they saw it. A structure, half buried in the ice, smooth metal, shaped like a dome, covered in symbols that matched the ones Claire had seen before. It's real, she whispered. They approached slowly. Danny ran his gloved hand over the surface. This isn't natural, he said. This was built. Claire stepped forward and touched one of the symbols. A soft light flickered beneath her fingers. Then the ground trembled. The structure responded. Lights blinked on all around them. A low hum filled the air. The ice around the dome began to melt. Get ready, Luke shouted. The entrance opened. Inside, the team found themselves in a vast chamber. The walls were lined with glowing panels. Strange machines sat dormant, waiting. Claire moved quickly, scanning everything with her handheld device. Jason followed behind, taking notes. This place is old, Jason said. Thousands of years maybe, but still working, Danny added. Claire pointed to a central console. That must be the source of the signal. They approached it. Symbols lit up as they neared. Then, suddenly, the room changed. A hologram appeared. It showed a being. Not human, not Zalari. Tall, with smooth skin and large eyes. Its voice echoed in the room, translated into English. You are not alone. We are the Iron. We seeded life across the stars. Among you, we place the code. When danger comes, it wakes. You are the keepers. The image faded. Silence filled the room. Luke looked at Claire. Did you understand that? She nodded slowly. Yes, we weren't just lucky. We were made this way. Jason stared at the console. So the immunity, it was planned? Claire swallowed hard. Yes, someone put it in us a long time ago, and now because of the war it's waking up. Back on Earth, news of the discovery spread fast. Governments debated what it meant. Scientists argued over the implications. President Grant called an emergency meeting with top officials. If this is true, she said, then we've been living with something we never knew was there. Something left behind by beings we've never met. One general asked, what do we do with this knowledge? Another answered, we use it. But not everyone agreed. Some feared the change. What if humans kept evolving? What if they stopped being human altogether? Riots broke out in some cities. People demanded answers. Others formed groups that wanted to control the new power. Claire watched the chaos unfold from her lab. They don't understand, she said quietly. Jason looked at her. Understand what? That this isn't just about survival anymore, she said. It's about what we become next. On Mars, Luke stood outside the outpost once more, staring at the stars. Megan walked up beside him. "You okay?" she asked. Luke nodded. "Just thinking." "About what?" "The message," he said. "We're not just surviving. We're part of something bigger." Megan looked at the sky. "Do you think the Iron are watching us?" "I don't know," Luke admitted. "But I think they left us a chance, a way to protect ourselves." She smiled slightly. "Maybe they believed in us." "Maybe," Luke said. They stood in silence for a while. Above them, ships flew between planets. The war wasn't over. The Zalari were still out there. But now, humanity knew the truth. They were not alone. And they were not just victims. They were the keepers. And something inside them was changing. The message from the Iron changed everything. It spread across Earth like fire. On screens, in news reports, whispered between soldiers, shared among scientists and leaders. It was proof that humanity had not evolved alone. That something older, something powerful had left them here with a purpose. But not everyone believed it. Some thought it was fake, a trick by the Zalari to weaken human resistance. Others saw it as a warning, that if humans were keepers, then they were also targets. And some feared what came next. In orbit above Europa, the team stood inside the ancient structure, still, reeling from what they had seen. Claire Norris stared at the glowing console. The symbols pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. She reached out and touched one. The room lit up again. This time, the hologram wasn't just a voice. It was a vision. A world, covered in green oceans, cities floating on water, beings like the ones before, tall and calm, moving through light-filled halls. Then came fire, war, ships falling from the sky. The image shifted. Now Earth appeared, small, blue, alone, and then humans. Not just any humans, children, soldiers, scientists, people from every corner of the planet. The voice returned, "You are the last. The others are gone. You must remember." Then the image faded. Silence filled the chamber once more. Luke Harper looked at Claire. "What does it mean?" She swallowed hard. "It means we're not just survivors. We're the only ones left." Jason Bell shook his head. "Of what?" "Of the keepers," she said quietly. "Whatever the Iron we're protecting, we're the last of it." Danny Cho frowned. "So we're not just fighting for Earth anymore?" "No," Claire said. "We're fighting for something bigger." Back on Mars, Megan Carter sat outside, the outpost, watching the stars. Luke walked over and sat beside her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Everything," she said. "The war, the signal, the message." Luke looked up. "You ever wonder if we're supposed to win?" Megan turned to him. "You don't think we are?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I used to think winning meant surviving. Now I'm not sure." She sighed. "We've come so far. But now there's more to lose than ever." They sat in silence for a while, then the radio crackled. "Harper," a voice called. "Command wants you back on Earth." Luke frowned. "For what?" "They say it's important. Something about first contact." He looked at Megan. She smiled. "Guess you're not just a soldier anymore." On Earth, preparations were underway for the most important meeting in human history. The Zalari had responded to the discovery, not with warships or weapons, but with words. A message arrived at the United Nations headquarters. "We seek audience. The keepers have awakened. We must speak." No one knew what it meant, but no one could ignore it either. President Grant called together military leaders, scientists, and diplomats. They needed to decide who would represent humanity when the Zalari finally arrived. Claire and Jason were invited. So was Luke. As they stepped onto the plane that would take them to Washington, Jason looked nervous. "You okay?" Claire asked. He nodded. "Just Never thought I'd be part of something like this. She smiled. None of us did. The Zalari ship arrived 3 days later. It was massive, black and smooth, shaped like a blade slicing through the sky. It hovered above the Atlantic Ocean just off the coast of Florida. No weapons fired, no attacks launched, just waiting. Inside the command center in Washington, President Grant gave the final orders. "We go with peace," she said. "But we stay ready." Luke, Claire, and Jason were among those chosen to meet the aliens. They boarded a transport craft and flew toward the Zalari ship. As they approached, the side of the alien vessel opened, revealing a dark entrance. One by one, they stepped inside. Inside, the air was cold. The walls glowed faintly with blue light. The floor was smooth metal reflecting their boots. They were met by 4 Zalari. Tall, thin beings with pale skin and black eyes. Their armor shimmered, like liquid silver. One stepped forward. Its voice was deep and calm. "You are the keepers. We have watched you awaken." Claire stepped forward. "We want to understand." The Zalari leader tilted its head. "Then listen." Lights flickered around them. Another hologram appeared. It showed the galaxy thousands of years ago. The iron, in all their glory, spreading life across the stars, seeding planets with intelligence, teaching, guiding. Then came the war. Something else, something unknown, attacked the iron, hunted them down, destroyed their worlds. Only fragments remained. One of those fragments was Earth. The hologram ended. A Zalari leader spoke again. "When we came, we did not know. We believed you were weak, but now we see. Your kind carries the code. You are the last of the keepers." Luke looked at Claire. "So what happens now?" The Zalari leader paused. "Now you choose." Back on Earth, the world waited. News broadcasts played the same footage. The Zalari ship hovering over the ocean, the human delegation entering it, the long silence afterward. People gathered in cities, in homes, in shelters underground. Some hoped for peace. Others feared betrayal. Riots broke out in some places. Protests filled the streets. Some wanted to use the immunity as power. Others warned against it. President Grant made a public speech. "We do not fight alone anymore," she said. "We are not just defending our home. We are carrying the legacy of something greater. We must decide who we are." On the Zalari ship, the discussion continued. Claire asked the question everyone was thinking. "What happens if we say no?" The Zalari leader answered, "Then the knowledge dies with you, and the cycle begins again." Jason frowned. "Cycle?" The leader's eyes darkened. "There will always be those who seek power, who destroy. If you do not carry the code forward, someone else will try, and fail, as others did before." Luke looked at Claire. "We can't let that happen." She nodded. "We need time." The Zalari leader bowed slightly. "You may have it." When the delegation returned to Earth, the world changed forever. The truth was undeniable now. Humanity was not alone. They were not just survivors. They were the last hope of an ancient race, and something inside them was changing. The world was changing, not just because of the war with the Zalari, but because of what humanity now knew. They were not just humans anymore. They were keepers, and that truth spread fast. Through news reports, radio waves, whispered conversations, in dark corners of underground shelters. Some people saw it as hope, others saw it as power, and some saw it as danger. In Washington, President Elizabeth Grant stood in front of a large group of leaders from across the planet. They met in secret, behind thick walls and guarded doors. "We are at a turning point," she said. "We must decide how we move forward." General Marcus Ray leaned forward. "We should use this immunity. We have an advantage. If the Zalari fear us, then we strike first." Dr. Claire Norris shook her head. "No, that's not what the iron meant. We're not here to conquer. We're here to survive and protect something bigger than ourselves." Jason Bell sat beside her. If we start another war, we might lose everything. President Grant looked at them both. Then what do you suggest? Claire took a deep breath. Peace talks, a summit, with the Zalari. Silence filled the room. Finally, General Ray spoke again. You want to talk to the aliens who nearly destroyed us? Yes, Claire said. Because they're afraid too. They don't understand what we've become. And if we don't explain it to them, they'll keep attacking. President Grant nodded slowly. Then we arrange a meeting. On Mars, Luke Harper stood outside the outpost, looking up at the sky. Megan Carter walked over. I heard the news, she said. Luke didn't look away. Yeah, peace talks. You think it'll work? I don't know, he admitted. But I know we can't keep fighting like this forever. Megan crossed her arms. What if it's a trap? He finally turned to face her. Then we make sure we're ready for it. Later that night, orders came down. Luke and his squad were chosen to escort Claire and Jason to the Peace Summit on the moon. It would be the first time humans and Zalari met as equals, or so they hoped. The journey to the moon was quiet. Their ship left Earth under heavy security. Fighters flew alongside them. Radar scanned every direction. Luke sat near the window, watching Earth shrink behind them. Megan sat beside him. You nervous? She asked. A little, he admitted. This feels like walking into enemy territory blindfolded. She smirked. That's kind of your thing, isn't it? He chuckled. Guess so. Inside the main cabin, Claire and Jason reviewed their notes. This could change everything, Jason said. Claire nodded. Or destroy us. He frowned. You really think it could go that bad? She looked out the window. I think we don't know what we're dealing with. The Zalari still see us as a threat, and there are humans who want to use our immunity to rule others. Jason sighed. So we're walking into a room full of fire. Exactly, she said. And we have to make sure no one lights a match. When they landed on the moon, the sight was strange. A large dome had been built in the center of a crater. It glowed faintly in the darkness. Inside, the summit would take place. Outside, human and Zalari soldiers stood guard, weapons ready. But not drawn. Tension filled the air. Inside the dome, tables had been set up. Flags from Earth's nations lined the walls. Across from them, the Zalari delegation waited. Luke, Megan, and 2 other soldiers stood near the back, watching carefully. At the center table, President Grant sat with top diplomats. Across from her, the Zalari leader, Vectal, watched silently. The meeting began. President Grant spoke first. We come in peace, not as enemies, but as survivors. Vectal studied her. You carry the code. You are not just survivors. You are inheritors. Claire stepped forward. We want to understand what that means. The Zalari leader raised a hand. Lights flickered above them. Another hologram appeared. It showed the galaxy again. But this time, it showed more. Other worlds, other beings, all wiped out. The keepers were many once, Vectal said. Now only your kind remains. President. Grant looked shocked. Then we are the last? Yes, the Zalari replied, and the cycle may begin again. Jason frowned. What cycle? Vectal's voice grew cold. War. Fear. Power. One species rises, another falls, until nothing remains. Silence filled the room. Then, suddenly, alarms blared. A loud explosion rocked the dome. Smoke filled the air. Gunfire erupted. Chaos. Back on Earth, riots broke out. A radical group called New Dawn had warned against peace with the Zalari. They believed humanity should use its immunity to dominate the galaxy. Now they made their move. Bases were attacked. Government buildings bombed. Soldiers turned against each other. President Grant tried to restore order, but it was too late. The summit had been sabotaged and someone wanted war. Inside the dome on the moon, smoke filled the air. Luke pulled Megan down behind cover. Gunfire echoed all around. "Who's shooting?" she shouted. "I don't know," Luke yelled back. Claire and Jason ducked behind a table. Zalari guards returned fire toward the entrance. Through the smoke, Luke saw a figure moving fast, a soldier wearing black armor not part of either side. A saboteur. Without thinking, Luke ran. He tackled the figure to the ground. They fought, rolling through the dust. The attacker punched him hard in the face. Luke felt pain, but no real damage. He grabbed the attacker's helmet and ripped it off. It was a young man, no older than 25. Luke held him down. "Who sent you?" The man spat blood. "You don't get it. You never will." Then he reached for a small device on his belt. Luke saw it too late. The bomb detonated. A flash. A shockwave. Then silence. When Luke opened his eyes, everything hurt. Smoke filled the air. Bodies lay around him. Some moved. Most didn't. Megan crawled over to him. "You're alive." Luke coughed. "Shouldn't be." She helped him sit up. "That blast should have killed you." He looked at his hands. No burns, no wounds, just bruises. "I think I'm starting to get used to it." Claire limped over, holding her arm. Jason followed behind. "They're gone," she said. The Zalari left. President Grant was being evacuated. The summit was over. And the war wasn't ending, it was getting worse. Back on Earth, the world watched the footage, the attack, the chaos, the failure of peace. Some blamed the Zalari, others blamed humanity, and some saw what was coming next, a new war, not just between humans and aliens, but within humanity itself. As the stars blinked above them, Luke stood with Megan on a rooftop in New York. Below, the city burned. Above, ships prepared for battle. Something inside them was changing, and now, the war was redefined, forever. The war had changed. It wasn't just humans against aliens anymore. Now it was also humans against other humans. Some believed they should use their immunity as power. Others feared what it meant, and some, like Claire Norris and Luke Harper, just wanted to understand. In Washington, President Elizabeth Grant stood before the world. Her voice was calm but firm. "We are not alone," she said. "We carry something inside us that was left by those who came before. We did not ask for it. But now, we must decide what to do with it." Behind her, flags from every nation waved in the wind. In front of her, thousands gathered in silence. "Some want war," she continued. "Some want control, but I believe our future lies in something greater than conquest. We have survived things we were never meant to survive. Now we must choose who we become." Across the planet, people listened, in cities filled with smoke and fire, in underground shelters where families hid, on Mars, where soldiers still fought, on Europa, where scientists worked late into the night. Everyone was waiting for the next move. On the moon, Luke sat with Megan Carter outside the remains of the summit dome. The sky above them was black, filled with stars. "You ever think about what life was like before all this?" Megan asked. Luke looked at the ground. "Sometimes. Feels like a different world." She smiled slightly. "Feels like a dream." He nodded. "Yeah, a quiet one." They watched as ships flew overhead, human and Zalari alike. Not fighting, just watching. Claire and Jason walked over. "We got the data," Jason said. "From the Iron message. There's more to it." Claire held out a small device. "There's a second part, something they didn't show us before." Luke frowned. "What does it say?" Claire tapped the screen. Lights flickered in the air again. A new hologram appeared. This time it showed Earth, but not how it was now, how it could be. Green fields, clean oceans, cities full of light, people walking together, not as soldiers or enemies, but as neighbors. Then the image changed. It showed humans leaving Earth, traveling to other stars, meeting new beings, sharing knowledge. And finally it showed something else, a great light rising from the center of the galaxy, a signal. You are not alone, the voice said again. But you must choose your path. Will you carry the code forward? Or let it die with fear? The image faded. Silence. Luke looked at Claire. So what do we do? She met his eyes. We decide. Back on Earth, the world was breaking apart. Fighting had spread beyond the battlefield. Cities burned. Governments fell. Some leaders tried to take control of the immunity, claiming it made humans superior. Others warned that power without purpose would destroy them. President Grant called for peace, but not everyone listened. In secret, a group formed: scientists, soldiers, diplomats, and ordinary people, humans who believed in something bigger than war. They called themselves the Keepers, their mission, to protect the truth, to keep the code safe, to make sure humanity chose the right path. Claire and Jason joined them. So did Luke and Megan. Together, they traveled across the world, spreading the message. We are not gods. We are not monsters. We are not alone. On Line Dice, the Zalari ship Commander Vectal watched the reports come in. His people had feared humans. They had seen them as a threat. But now he saw something else. Hope. He turned to his council. The Keepers have chosen, he said. Will we follow them? Or will we remain enemies of the last hope of the Iron? One of his officers stepped forward. They are still young, still weak. Vectal shook his head. No, they are strong because they remember, because they choose peace when others choose war. He looked at the screen showing Earth below. I believe they may lead us to something better. In New York, Luke stood with Megan on a rooftop, overlooking the city. Smoke still rose from burning buildings. Soldiers moved through the streets. But there was also something else. People gathering, talking, trying to rebuild. I used to think survival was enough, Luke said. Now I know it's not. Megan looked at him. What do we do now? He took a deep breath. Now we help build the future. Below them, a group of children played near a broken wall. One boy reached out and touched another's arm. Suddenly, the second boy smiled. What? Luke asked. Megan pointed. Did you see that? Luke nodded. Yeah, he healed. They looked at each other. Something inside them was changing. Not just surviving, growing, becoming something new. Inside a hidden lab beneath the ocean, Claire and Jason worked late into the night. They studied blood samples, brain scans, genetic patterns. Children born after the war showed signs of change, faster learning, stronger senses, even limited control over matter. Jason looked up. They're evolving, Claire nodded. Not just bodies, minds too. He frowned. Is that good? She smiled. Only if we teach them the right way to use it. Outside, the sea glowed faintly in the dark, as if something old was waking up. Above it all, the stars shone bright. Humanity was no longer alone. They carried the code of the Iran. They had survived war. They had faced fear. And now, they had a choice: to become something greater, or to fall into darkness like those before them. On the edge of the solar system, a signal was sent. Not from Earth, not from the Zalari, but from humanity. A message to the stars. We are the last keepers. We remember. And we choose peace. And somewhere, far away, someone heard it and answered.